In this episode of the Short Lets and Service Accommodation series, I'm going to show you how to analyze a deal from start to finish using the tools that I use and also using a few websites that you will know, Airbnb. I actually don't use any paid websites. I know a lot of people use their DNA. I don't think you need it, and I'm going to show you what I do instead. So first and foremost, let's just set the scene. So we're going to assume that we have found a property to rent. So on this here, I'm going to skip, you see this is the BRR analysis section of the deal calculator that I've designed. That would fully give us everything that we needed. I'll just zoom in here so we can see this. This would give us everything that we needed to work out how much money was going to get stuck in the deal, how profitable the deal was going to be, using a very simple BRR strategy. What I then do is I move it into an SA analysis. However, let's look at a rent-to-rent deal. We've talked a lot about rent-to-rent in this series, but you know, in the main, it doesn't really matter. But rent-to-rent, let's look at this. So in the first column, let's have a look here. We want to put in what our costs are going to be. So how much is the furniture going to be? Let's just assume that's $3,500. Maybe we're setting up a 3 or 4 bed property. Okay, deposit, 0. If there's any refurbishment that you might need to do, typically I would encourage you to try and find properties that don't need a refurb. I think it's so much easier. Lesson learned was I probably spend too much money and too much time refurbing other people's properties in the beginning. Whilst it got me to where I am today, I would advocate not doing that if you can avoid it, and if there's any other cost put in there. So that's what it's going to cost us to get into the deal. Now, what we want to do is then put in the rent here. So the rent would be, let's say for argument's sake, £750 a month, and we then would fill in the rest of the details. But what I'm going to do is jump to Airbnb. Actually, I'll quickly put in this. So if you're in a mortgage, you put your mortgage in there. Rates, let's just say £150, £100 like power heat. Water rates, £40. What else we got? Insurance, maybe 9. Channel manager software fees, 14 or something. TV and internet, 35. So basically we're just putting in here all the different costs. Consumables, maybe 35. Investor loan repayments, furniture loan repayments. So if you're going to obviously loan your furniture, then you put that in here. I'm just going to assume for the sake of this that we're paying cash for it, but I'm going to show you something that might just change the deal slightly. And then we've got everything. So we've got our costs in there. Right, now we want to go and look at the location. So what I do is I jump on Airbnb. And in terms of the location, let's just put NE1, which is obviously Newcastle City Centre. I then go, I'm flexible, okay? I choose these 3 months and I choose the week. I then would find how many guests. So if I've got 3 per property, it's probably going to sleep 6 guests. So I try and marry that in the data here. So it brings up very similar units. Now, what I'm looking for here is this number here in the top left-hand corner, which tells me that there's 130 stays in Newcastle right now available based on my flexible search criteria. For me, that's a good sign, because if 130 people can make this business work, I'm pretty confident I can make this business work. So that's first step. Next step is I look at the reviews. So let's have a look. We've got 91 reviews, we've got 3 reviews, we've got 139 reviews, 16, 6, 58, 52, 22, 52, so on and so forth. Basically, we've got a lot of reviews, okay? Again, another good sign, because if there's a lot of reviews, that means there's a lot of people stayed, which means that there is revenue to be collected by having a property in this location. Now, you used to be able to go into a property, and we then would have a look at the forward calendar. So the forward calendar would be down here, and we would have a look to see what that looks like. As you can see here, these crossouts show when they're booked for. Now, this particular host runs a 1-night stay policy, which I would not advocate. However, that's not the purpose of this video. Let's look at what they're doing. They're actually not that booked. Now, prior to COVID, I'd have been worried about that, because people used to book 30, 45, 60 days in advance. However, the average lead booking time of my whole UK portfolio as it stands today is 10.46 days. So most people are booking within a 10-day window. Okay, it's dramatically changed. So for me, that data doesn't really bother me anymore. And I am pretty confident that if we have enough stays and enough reviews within the industry, then we can do that. I would also maybe look on Google Maps and have a look to see what hotels are within the vicinity of the property. So we just do a quick Google Maps. and I would then type in hotels in NE1. And as you can see there, we've got an abundance of hotels. So we have various different rates. We've got 69, we've got 64. But as you can see here, there's a big splat diagram of everything. So what I want to do is find out exactly where our property is and then see what's kicking about. Now, don't pay too much attention to hotel rates versus service accommodation rates. They're two total different things. Yes, they're accommodation, but there's a big difference between renting a room and renting a full house or an apartment. So, but the idea is that there's plenty there to go off. Again, if there's, many of them operating, then great. And again, you can look down the left-hand side here and have a look at how many reviews there are. And again, if there's lots of reviews, then that gives us the confidence that this will work. What I then do is jump back to here, and let's just assume that our property is bang in the middle here of this little cluster. So we've got rates here of 199, 159, 220, 130, 134, 165, 201, 208, 396, 153. So I'm probably gauging from that the price and point for the week is probably about £175. So what I then do is I come down to my calculator here and I go weekday price and I put 175. Next thing I will do is I'll go back to Airbnb and I change the weeknight here for the weekend and click search. And as you'll see here, the rates have changed. 423, 380, 250, 410, 288, 387, 239, 384. And then we've got a couple of splinters here, 170s, 135. So I'm going to go about £300 for the weekend rate. So again, weekend price, 300. Now, depending on where you're at and depending on the locations, you will have a bit of a feel for what's going to happen. Now, Newcastle is a very good city for contractors. There's a lot of development going on in and around the areas. And also, it's a very lively city on the weekend. So naturally, it attracts a lot of tourism. So on the weekend, we are pretty much 8 nights out of the month booked. So I would put that in there. And the weekday nights booked, I would probably work on something like 13 for my analysis just to see how many, ideally that 21 night a month is my booking point. So I've always worked on that. That's why I choose it. And my portfolio will pretty much play out that way on average. So what I'll then do is I'll have a minimum night stay. So I'm actually seeing this increase. I'm going to put 3 nights in there. So we'll take 6 bookings a month. As you can see, there's a lot of this data automatically populates based on the formulas that I've written within the spreadsheet. Because as you remember from one of my earlier videos, I want to make decisions based on logic and not emotion. And this is my logical way of doing it. I put the numbers in and it tells me whether I do it or don't do it with my green and red light system, which I'm going to come on to shortly. Cleaning fee per stay, let's just say £45, might be a bit more than that, £65. Linen fee per stay, let's just say that's £35. That's probably so in general there. Gross revenue is 4675, so that's based on that times 8 and that times 13. OTA commissions that we're giving away is roughly £351. Running costs, VAT, etc. So our total profit on that unit is 2594. Now, that rent probably doesn't live up to where that city is, so we'll just change that slightly to make this a bit more realistic. So we've got a 1250 rent and we've got a total profit of £2,000. Now, what I do is I make sure that we also look at the seasonality of everything that we're doing as well. So we again have this is a kind of snapshot, this top bit here, but I want to know what the seasons look like. So we've got occupancy and revenue down here, and basically it will tell us what the fluctuating income will be as the seasons work based on the occupancy and the rate. And then it gives us our profit here. Now, as you'll see, it's got the green light on from month 2 because our refurbishment costs here were minimal. But let's just say, for argument's sake, we were going to do a £4,000 refurb and the furniture was actually £550, and therefore we're into, and we had to also give a deposit of £1,250. So our total cost is $10,750. You see here the red starts to creep. However, it's still, for me, it's month 6 or less. If it's anything more than month 6 that it takes to go green, I don't go into the deal unless I can tweak the deal to make it suit. So I might change the rent, or I might put the furniture onto an installment plan. There's various different ways that I'll do it to get my payback back, but I want my money that I invest in the properties back within 6 months. I then go on to see what that looks like in terms of an annualized profit. and ultimately, as you can see there, this will be a very lucrative deal and definitely one that you would want to go into. So as you can see here, the average wage is 28 grand in the UK. So, you know, these deals, you know, whilst the figures might not be as accurate as they could be, even if you half this, you only need a few of these deals to get you financially independent. And that's one of the great things about the rent-to-rent strategy and using short-term rentals to ensure that you can achieve that. So if you would like a copy of this deal analyzer, the link is in the description of the video. Just give it a little click and you can get your own copy of it. And if you do have any questions around how to analyze deals in any more detail, then please just leave me a comment. But that is really how I do it. And yes, I've got a bit more experience, so I kind of know what areas work, but in the main, that's how I do it. We can only dig into this so much. The data is only what we put in, and it's not always going to be accurate. You know, at the end of the day, I could have done this on March the 15th, 2020, and by March the 26th, we had a very different situation going on. So, you know, but the data is the data. We can, you know, work on averages. We work on what we're feeling. And I also believe that your gut instinct is also a good measure. But for me, I would never, ever, ever invest if this is all red past this 6-month point here, because that does not fit with my criteria. I will just go and find another property that does. And they are the boundaries that I set for myself, and I encourage you to set your own boundaries as well. In the next video of the series, we're going to be looking at the correct way to list your properties as serviced accommodation and short let. So make sure you hit the bell notification and subscribe, and I'll see you then.